Good morning to everyone. So, welcome to the new session of the course Operations Research. So, in this session, we are going to discuss about the basic introduction of OR. What is OR and where we are going to use this OR and what are the various types of models that are available in order to solve this OR and everything we are going to discuss in this lecture. So, first of all, going into the source, we need to know what is operations research. Operations research is nothing but it's an art of winning the wars without actually fighting. So what does it mean? It's nothing means. So whatever the plans we are having, whatever the resources we are having, so actually utilizing those resources in an effective way in order to maximize the gains or profits in the business world. So operations research mainly concerns about how effectively we can utilize the resources rather than going into the market directly and experiencing the actual situations or conditions. So we are going to identify how these situations will be or how the conditions will be, how we are going to gain, in what way if we plan accordingly so that we can be successful in the market. So our products or services or anything can be sustainable in the market in order to know before itself, before going into the actual situations. So priorly, if we are planning and identifying the conditions, is nothing but this operations research. Means operations research, whatever the things, the word itself, if we just observe, operations research means the operations, what we are going to do, what kind of work we are going to do, what kind of businesses we are going to do. So in that businesses or that work, we are going to do some research in a better way, how we can do that work in a better way. So identifying the ways, identifying the means, or identifying the opportunities that are available in order to meet or in order to do that work in a very successful way. So that is what where the operations research is mainly meant for, and where this actually every industry, every organization is using this operations research techniques. So the contents in our lecture contains introduction to operational research, history, and how operations research is used in India, and definitions and future scope of OR and methodologies, tools and techniques. So operational research and management decision makings, and what are the limitations. So these are the various contents we are going to discuss in this lecture. So coming to introduction to OR. So actually OR has started in around 1940s when the Second World War has happened. So it came under existence during Second World War, when the UK, United Kingdom, has been having very limited resources to go for the war. So there they have planned whatever the resources that are available with them. They have planned in a very effective way, so in order to meet and gain in the war, so they have done some planning, so which is very helpful for them to win that war. So from then onwards, they started doing some research in how we can effectively improve this technique in various situations or various business things also. So later on, it is typically concerned with the determining maximum profits, sales, outputs, crops, yields, and efficiencies. So minimize the risk and losses, cost and time of objectives. So something, whatever the gains or losses are there. So in order to maximize the gains and in order to minimize the losses, so these operations research techniques will be very much useful. So this technique came into existence during the Second World War. So the birth of OR is generally held in England during the World War II. So after that, many of the universities came forward to do some research in establishing some more techniques in World War for various situations. So modern operations research originated by the Wardies Research Station in UK. So in 1937. So during the Second World War, about 1,000 men and women were engaged to work for the British Army. So with that only, they are with how effectively they can manage the things they have planned and executed those things in a very effective way. After that World War, after the successful of that war, so military operations research in UK became the AVO analysis research organization to develop some more techniques in various that can be useful, that can be applied in various situations. So operations research in India was founded in 1957 to provide the form for operations research scientists. So they have also identified International Federation of Operational Research Societies, which is to which the Operations Research Society of India was affiliated to. So the headquarters was located in Kolkata. So most of the society's headquarters was located in Kolkata in that time. So And after that, present chapters are having at various locations like Agra, Ahmedabad, Izmir, and Bangalore. All over India, we are having some societies which comes under this operations research. And making some more, developing some more new techniques for enhancing the sustainability of products in the market. So the objectives of this society is to comprise or advancement of conducting of research in the study, promotion and propagation of knowledge in OR and its various techniques. So this society will always look forward to share the knowledge, develop new techniques in the area of operations research. So contribution to the society towards attainment of these objectives. So income tax and everything, these are the society publishes a quarterly journal also. Coming to definitions, definitions of operations research. There are many definitions defined by various authors, but let us see a few of them. So if you see, it is an act of winning wars without actually fighting. That is given by author Clark. So means without actually fighting, means rather than going into the real fight, priorly planning for that. So how effectively we can win that war. So planning for that and making an effective plan in order to meet that war. So that is given by author Clark. And the second one is that it is scientific approach to problem solving for executive managements. So it is given by H.M. Wagner. So after that, priorly planning, prior means after that operations research has been developed and many techniques has been developed for various organizations, businesses, and everything. So in that constraint, this for solving executive management problems, whatever the problems that are having, so for solving that problems also operations research can be used. So it is art of giving bad answers to problems which otherwise have worse answers. So operations research means priorly identifying what can be the what can be a solution, what can be the existence, or what can be in the market. Priorly identifying those things rather than after going that and experiencing a worse experience. So priorly, if we identify whether that can be sustainable, that can be suitable or anything, priorly identification makes us maybe it may give good results or bad results, but rather than after without identifying that, if we just move on to that one, means it may give somewhat worse answers. So next, features of operations research. What are the various features of operations research are there? That is decision making. So to make some decisions. So in order to management level people will be taking some decisions, right? Whether we are going to do that project or not. So whether we are preparing that product or not. So whatever the decisions make, the management, higher authority people takes the decisions. So in decision making, this OR will be very much useful because the techniques that are used in like forecasting methodologies and everything. So that techniques will be much more useful for any business organization, people, management to in a decision making things. And scientific approaches. So taking previous data, historical data, and identifying what will be the feature of that one. So interdisciplinary team approach. So it's not only built for only a specific team. It is an interdisciplinary team involving various areas of people in that in solving some problems and everything. So system approach. So sometimes we need to have a group of things. So that one, and use of computers, and so these are all various features of operations research. So decision making. What is decision making in operations research? Is nothing but every industry organization faces multifaceted problems to identify best possible solutions to their problem. So where the OR aims to help the executives to obtain optimal solutions with the use of OR techniques. So optimal solution is the identifying the best solution, means whatever the resources we are having, whatever the conditions we are having. So effective utilization of those conditions will lead to the optimal results. So identifying those optimal results, what it can be. So by using some OR techniques regarding various areas. So using the relevant technique for that, so we are going to identify, see the best optimal solution. So it also helps in decision maker to improve his creative and judicious capabilities and analyze and understand the problem situations. So forecasting, mainly it depends upon forecasting, means identifying, taking the feedbacks, or collecting some surveys, collecting the information from the market. So priorly, before going into the market directly, so if we have that experience, means if we collect that feedback priorly, and if we analyze that feedback and accordingly if we take the decisions, then it may be very helpful for the organization to grow in a successful way. So every organization will be looking forward to have or to identify themselves in the market, what is their credibility, what is their current situations and everything. So in order to identify those things, these techniques are very much helpful for any organizations. So decision making. So in order to decision making means in order to if we are going to establish a new industry, so where we need to establish, when we can establish that one, in which amount of this thing we need to gather, or in which amount of area we need it. So everything. So whether that is suitable to the market or not. So identifying priorly rather than after experiencing worse situations, it is better to have that experience before itself. So to identify those things priorly, so that it will be helpful for them to have a sustainability in the market situations. So decision making is very most important. So which makes the company grow or downfall in the market. So decision makers should not take the decisions very blindly. So they need to execute, they need to analyze each and every aspect. So how this business or how this market, how this products or services can be sustainable in the market. So basing on those things, the decision makers will be taking the decision. So in taking those decisions and making an effective planning and everything, this operations research techniques will be very much useful. So scientific approach applies scientific methods, techniques, tools for the purpose of analysis and solutions of the complex problem. So there is here we are going to use some historical data. So whatever the prior data are available, previously experienced data, what is available. So based upon that data, we are going to have some scientific calculations, some mathematical methods and techniques we are going to use, and basing upon those analyzation of that data, we are going to come to a conclusion. Means that may be right or wrong, but we can come to a conclusion that this amount of this will be the solution for that, this will be the best solution for this problem. So in order to identify those things and in order to identify those techniques and everything, we are going to the scientific approach methods are useful. And interdisciplinary team approach, it is nothing but basically the industrial problems are of complex nature and therefore require team effort to handle. So interdisciplinary, whereas because any organization doesn't have a direct collaboration for only one discipline of people. So it needs multiple disciplines. Means, for example, if a product is to be prepared, and it should be, for a simple example, if a mobile phone has to be designed and it has to go to the market. So various people are involved in that. So for the designing of the outer structure and everything, a mechanical engineer can be used for designing the outer body structures and everything. So when it comes to internal bodies, electronics people will be handling that things. So for preparing the circuit boards and everything, and the communications and wireless communication techniques, how to inculcate that techniques in that mobile phones. So the technology, the knowledgeable person from EC is required, and from electrical regarding that battery storage systems or battery management systems, that electrical people will be required, and for application purpose, CSC people will be required. So likewise, for any business oriented products to be developed and to be generated to the for the market, so it requires an interdisciplinary team where various knowledge from various areas are required to prepare that product. So interdisciplinary team approach is very most important in operations research. So this team comprises of scientists, mathematicians, technocrats, so who will be able to share their knowledge, who will be able to identify the real problems, identify the real situations in that area, and they are going to take decisions, or they are going to find the solutions for that. So, and system approach, the main aim of the system approach is to trace out all the significant indirect effects for that. This is the real-time problems that can be identified in the system. So identification of real-time problems. So whatever the we may not know how the system will be in the market, means there will be dynamic conditions. So in order to identify those and evaluate those actions and what are the effects that are being caused, so in that we are going to use this system approach techniques. And computers, nowadays development of various technology or various softwares to identify the tools or to identify to find the solutions for the problems has been developed. So these softwares developed are inculcated in the computers and making easy, because OR is generally is a lengthy process. Means calculating manually takes long time, because a number of iterations. In order to find the best solutions, it required number of iterations. Means whatever the answer we got, whatever the solution we find, we need to identify whether that solution is the best solution for the problem or not. So in that iterations, it may take very long time to calculate and everything. So to minimize those time and to effectively have the calculations and everything, so software developers has been developed this mathematical calculations into programming techniques where we can use computers directly to find out the problem. So in that way we can use computers in OR. So coming to the objectives, what are the objectives of objective is nothing but what the main aim of OR. So operation research always try to find the best and optimal solution to the problem. See, so what is the optimal solution here? What we are going to discuss is, so optimal solution is nothing but whatever the resources or whatever the means we are having, so whatever the opportunity we are having in our system, so using the best of that, so to make the best solution. So optimal solution is the best solution which we can adopt so that to have the system to run the system in an effective way. So to find the best solutions, so OR always tries to identify whatever the resources that are available and evaluating those resources and improving the system performance. So it is very useful. It is very operation research techniques are very most useful in that way. So it always tries to find out the best and the optimal solutions. We may have number of solutions. We may, for any given problem, we may have number of solutions. So, but what solution will be the best suitable for us, and we need to identify. So, in order to identify those things, these techniques are very most important. So, the objectives, the organizations are defined and analyzed these objectives, and then used as the basis to compare the alternative courses of action. So, what we need to do. So, what we need to execute, how we need to plan, how we need to prepare for ourselves in order to meet the market. So, all these things can be evaluated or observed or identified by using this OR technique. So the main objective of OR is to find the optimal solution, the best solution for any given problem. So the human factors driving in operations research are so quantitative solutions. We do not consider human factors, which doubtlessly play a great role in the problems. So here sometimes some human factors means some basic problems which we experience. So that may not be considered here but here we are going to take some what in the quantitative methods we are going to use the prior data, previously experienced data in order to find out the future data. So there sometimes we may not consider the human factors. So our study of OR is incomplete without the study, but we need to study the human factors also. So that is where we need to identify. The scope of OR not only confined to only specific, as it was developed by the defense organizations. So as it was originated around in the world wars and everything. So it is not confined only to that defense systems, but it was widely spreaded in various for various problems in various organizations and various departments. So in all industrial organizations, in all departments, for example, if we consider our institute, any institute, so institute will be having different departments, like financial department will be there, transportation department will be there, scholarship department will be there, as well as office sectors will be there, library will be there, different departments will be there. So in that different departments only, so your faculty will be there, non-teaching faculty will be there, classes, students will be there. So number of people, hostels and everything. So stores or any dispensaries. So a system is complete with all those inculcating all these departments. So each and every department is uniquely defined by their work. So not every department is going to do every work. So each and every department is uniquely defined for their purposes. So financial department will be looking after the profits and losses that is happening in the system. So transportation department will be looking after the how best we can facilitate the students in order to have their comfort transport from their origin to the college to the institute. Likewise, other scholarship divisions or office sectors, how best they can give the service to the students who came for any certificates or something like that. So exam sections, how best they can optimize the resources in order to execute that exams in a very best and effective way. So likewise, teachers, how we need to how we can utilize the teachers, how we can utilize the laboratories, how we can utilize the classrooms. So in each and every aspect, we can use the techniques of OR. So it is not only confined to only the different defense system where it was originated. After then, it was widely spread to various departments, various situations, various organizations which are going to perform various operations in the world. So it can be used to find the best solutions to any problem. it is simpler or complex. It is useful in every fields of human activities. Thus, it attempts to resolve the conflicts of interest among the components of organizations. So, the main field where OR is extensively used. So, fields of operations research. So, coming to any system. So, national planning and budgeting. So, when it comes to government policies, preparing the government policies or government plannings and allocating budgets to various sectors they are going to govern. So the government will be planning. So we can see when the budget plans are being released, we can see how much amount of budget is categorized to each and every department. So each and every area they are going to consider. So how they are going to allocate, how they are going to categorize this amount of money is going to be opted for so and so sector, and how much amount of is going to some other sector. So how they are going to decide. These decisions will always be taken by the analysis that is done by the operations research techniques only. So it is very much useful in planning and budgeting. So means how we can plan. So in order to meet that problem. So in order to solve that problem, what is the best plan we can have, and how much amount of budget, how much. So all these things comes under how effectively we can use that budget. So means simply not wasting the money which we are having. So we are trying to have a plan in what effective way we can use that budget that is allocated. So defense services, as usual, it was originated from the army itself. So what are the resources we are having? So so in the defense system there are various air force is there, navy is there, and other army is there. So whenever we to protect the country, so how much amount of our army is necessary, how much amount of navy is necessary, how much amount of air force is necessary, and what are how we can develop and how we can utilize the resources which are available with us in an effective way. So in the defense services, industrial establishments and private sector units. So in establishing of new industries, if you want to establish, where we can establish, in what amount of money that is to be utilized in order to build that industry. So what is the best place, how much amount of area is required, so what type of machinery is required, what type of products we are going to prepare, so whether those products are useful for the market or not. So in order to analyze before starting the business, so to analyze the outcome of that business, so this OR techniques will be very much useful. So and of course in R&D, engineering, research and development, nowadays we can see many type of materials, new materials are being developed, new technologies are being developed, new applications are being developed. So whatever the products that are being manufactured, like cars or any other things, whatever the products that are being manufactured, so they are going to utilize these technologies, they are utilize these tools and techniques that are being developed, new tools and techniques that are being developed. So the organizations are trying to inculcate those technologies into their products. So the R&D team will always look after how best we can develop the components, how best we can prepare the products and everything. So of course R&D department will be much more utilize these operations research techniques. So when it comes to planning and budgeting in detail, if we go into that, we can have 5-year plans. So the governments will be preparing the plans and the annual budgets, forecastings of income and expenditure, what is the income that is being generated, and what is the expenditure we are spending on that one. So to identify themselves whether we are in a growing stage or we are in a downfall stage or we are moving in a stable way. So to identify those things, forecasting of income and expenditures, scheduling of major projects. So as you know, many projects or any will be taken up by the government to bring the development in the society. So in order to do that projects, so when we can schedule that one, when we need to bring that into existence, so they'll prepare for schedulings and everything. This will be very much useful. And estimations of GNPs, GDPs, populations, employment and generation of agriculture. Every sector, this operations research can be used in planning. And defense, development of new technologies, optimization of cost and time in preparing that technology, tenders and evaluation, how best tenders we can keep. So if you identify each and every aspect, then there will be an opportunity to identify the best policy we can take into the tender, setting and layouts of different projects, assessments or threat analysis, strategy of battles, effective maintenance and replacement equipments, inventory controls, transportation, supply deposits, etc. So industrial establishments and private sector units, plant location, as I said, plant locations and setting, finance planning, so product and process planning, what type of machineries that are necessary, and facility planning and constructions, production planning and control, purchasing, maintenance and management, personnel management, In all these areas, OR techniques are used. In R&D engineering, so research and development being the heart of the technology growth, OR has wide scope, can be applied in the technology forecasting and evaluation. So how the technology is being developing day by day. So whether whatever the technology we are going to use in that system will be an outdated one or will be a successful one or not. So in order to identify those things, so technology forecasts and evaluations can be made, technology and project management can be done, preparation of tenders and negotiations, and value engineering's work methods study, and so on. So these are all the department of research and development that happens. So with this, I'll just close this session. So in the next class, we'll see what are the various methodologies or approaches that are there in doing this or solving the operational research problems. So in today's lecture, we have discussed about what is OR and what is operations research, and what are the various objectives of operations research, and what are the various definitions of operations research, and the scope of operations research. In the next class, we'll see about how the operations research techniques will be used, and how we can how problems are formulated and how the problems are being solved. In the later classes, we'll discuss. So, thank you.